Good evening. I call to order the business meeting of the Cave Creek Unified School District Number 93 Governing Board. It's Monday, March 14th, 2022, and it's 6 p.m. Item 1.2, roll call. All 5 board members are present, and there is a quorum. Present from the cabinet are Dr. Monroe, Dr. Jensen, Ms. Rodriguez, and Mrs. Scott. Item 1.3, formal adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
I would like to pull out 5.2.
Okay. Is there a second to the amended motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. The agenda is approved as amended. Item 1.4, call to fill out forms for call to the public. We have one, so there will be an admonition read in a couple minutes. Item 1.5, Pledge of Allegiance. We have Ethan Von Thurrock-Thorpe, a senior at Cactus Shadows High School. Recently started leading the Pledge of Allegiance every Friday for Cactus Shadows students and staff. He's going to the Special Olympic USA Games in Orlando with Team Arizona, competing with the cheerleading team.
Awesome.
He also is a part of the Special Olympics track and basketball. He loves Cactus Shadows High School and can often be found on campus pumping up other athletes for their upcoming games, as well as trying to convince others to cheer for the Arizona Cardinals. So would you please stand for the pledge? And Ethan, go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Ethan. Item 1.6, President's Report. I visited Horseshoe Trails a couple of weeks ago and observed a coding class, the equine program in action, and visited a preschool. I also attended the Black Mountain Science Fair, which was very interesting, and participated in their Read Across America. And I'd like to recognize my ambassador, Ryan Dempsey, who is a 4th grader from Mrs. Nechtman's class, and she did a really good job at keeping me on schedule. She was right here at my elbow whispering, "You got a minute, you got 2 minutes." She was really good. And then this weekend, I saw Mamma Mia. And so kudos again to Mr. Cupo and the drama team. They have so much energy, and they're so good. So great job to them. And congratulations to the Cactus Shadows varsity cheer. They are state champs. So that's it for me. Board.
Go ahead.
Just wanted to say that a couple things. First, I did get to participate in the Read Across America. That was the first time ever, even though I've been teaching for a long time, that I got to do that. So I wanted to thank Ms. Nechtman's 4th grade class, including Blake Walker, who was in there, and also Ms. Plum's 1st grade class, which was great because I got to do my pirate voice for a whole time, so that was awesome. So thank you for that, Ms. Spigarelli, for setting that up. 2 other things that I've been doing in the last couple of weeks, participated in an ASBA panel discussion for educators that were in the Tucson area that are considering or are filed to run for school boards. And it was really good, a lot of good discussion, and it was really good to see these educators wanting to get involved. Then a couple of days later, I was invited to a small group discussion with the president of the National Education Association, Becky Pringle, and Arizona President, AEA President Joe Thomas, to discuss the school board teacher union relationship. So it was really an honor to be invited to these things, and I really enjoyed doing that. So that's it.
Thank you.
I've been to quite a few things. It's been busy, especially as a mom and kids spread out through schools. Science night at Black Mountain Elementary, and somehow it was set up perfectly that I made it to all 3 kids' experiments in the time allotted, so that worked out great. My husband attended the junior high one with my oldest son, so those were back to back. I also attended the barbecue at Sonoran Trails with my husband. Got to embarrass our son a little bit and enjoy some barbecue from Ms. Rodriguez and also Dr. Monroe. I also got to participate in Read Across America. Ms. Spigarelli did a great job setting that up last year. I actually did get to participate via Zoom, so it was nice to be in person. I was in the 3rd grade class with Miss Scott and her students, which my daughter's also there. And then also the 6th grade class. I may have been dressed up a little bit like Cat in the Hat, which my 3rd grader loved. My 6th grader son, not so much. It was a little embarrassing for him. And then I also did attend the production of Mamma Mia last Thursday night, the Fine Arts Center. Probably one of my most favorite buildings we have on campus, and a great way just to bring the community together. And kudos to Mr. Cupo.
Did a few things also, like the rest of the board did. Attended back in the middle of February. We had our Employee of the Month breakfast. And I'd like to thank Summit Diner because they've been a great sponsor of that for us over the years. Then attended the science fair at Sonoran Trails. That was neat. I haven't been able to go, obviously, the last couple of years. Had 4 student displays that really interest me. One was the type of pan to use, how to cook chocolate chip cookies. So that was good. The effective way to kick a soccer ball, types of insulation to use when you're building a house, and the quality of paper towels. And that's an important one because at my house, we go through paper towels like crazy. Also got to participate in the Read Across America Day at Black Mountain. Like Member Hatcher, I also had a fantastic guide for the day, a 4th grader, a young lady by the name of Delaney, who was very good of keeping me on task and on time. I read in the Mrs. Klobosky's kindergarten class and in Mrs. Parmalee's 5th grade class. I've also, would just like to mention, little Bobcat told me that Mrs. Spigarelli, who organizes Read Across America, is going to be Black Mountain's Teacher of the Year. So that's an outstanding award for her because she puts a lot into the Read Across America. And then wrapped it all up last Friday night. I got to go do bingo night at Horseshoe Trails. And that is a lot of fun. The great family event. The PTO there did a fantastic job putting it on. And the kids and the families had a lot of fun. And then just one other note, and I know Ms. Scott would appreciate this. Today is Pi Day. All of our math and science and STEM students will be happy celebrating Pi Day today. So again, happy Pi Day for everyone.
I attended the science night at Sonoran Trails, and like Scott, it was very interesting and lots of neat things that I learned, among which is the average length of an anaconda is only 18 feet, contrary to what you see in the movie, and the average weight is only 200 pounds. Nonetheless, if I saw an 18-foot snake coming at me, it would be a bit unnerving. I attended Read Across America at Horseshoe Trails, and I love Dr. Seuss, but some of those words, I gotta tell you, I was kind of making up how to pronounce some words. And fortunately, the kindergartners and 1st grades didn't know any different. And I also attended bingo night at Horseshoe Trails, and it's so fun to see families come out on a Friday night and have a lot of fun with their kids.
Thank you. Item 1.8, Superintendent's Report. Dr. Monroe.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I want to thank the board for being so involved in all of the great things we have happen in our district, especially the last few weeks. So I'd like to put my stamp on a few of the things that they've said and added a few other recognitions and things in my superintendent's report. First of all, we have a National Merit Finalist at Cactus Shadows High School, as the board is aware. Congratulations to Ryan Tuffhill on being that finalist. As a semifinalist, Ryan was one of 16,000 students that were named in September of 2021 who met all the requirements to advance to be a finalist. 4 major news media announcements of Merit Scholar designees will be made in April, May, June, and July. Congratulations to Ryan again, and we appreciate him representing Cave Creek Unified and Cactus Shadows High School with this very elite designation. I'm also very proud to announce, although it's been announced at the high school, our Cactus Shadows High School Valedictorian and Salutatorian have been named. Sophia Barnetto is a co-valedictorian. She has been a student in our district since second grade, and she went to Lone Mountain Elementary School. She is the top of her class. She's active in a multitude of activities. She leads the National Honor Society. The National Chinese Honor Society is president, and she's the founder of her own club called the Cultural Students Union, which explores different cultures in order to encourage compassion and combat discrimination in her community. She hopes to attend University of Southern California with a major in business management and take a semester abroad. Following college, Sophia plans to use her knowledge to take a job in international business in order to help in the connectivity of the world and make the future a kinder place. The other co-valedictorian, his name is Bryden Kaminsky, and Bryden's been in our district since the 4th grade, and he went to Horseshoe Trails. He's the oldest of his siblings, and he moved here from New York. He enjoys reading, video games, and watching sports, in particular baseball. He runs on the track and cross-country team at the high school. He's currently awaiting responses from Georgetown, Brown, Cornell, Stanford, and Harvard. However, his number one choice is Georgetown. He has been accepted to UVA, ASU, Elon U, and William and Mary already. Ryan Tuffhill, who I mentioned earlier, is also our salutatorian. He's been with us since kindergarten and attended Desert Willow Elementary School. He plans to study aerospace engineering at either Embry-Riddle, MIT, or Cal Poly, and he has hopes to design and build a spacecraft for a company like SpaceX or NASA. Those are words that we weren't able to say 10 or 20 years ago, so that's very exciting. President Hatcher mentioned our Cactus Shadows cheer team that competed in state and won. Here's a fun fact. Did you know that they are D2 13-time state champions? So that is tremendous, and we congratulate those hardworking squads again. The Read Across America was a resounding success. Appreciate the board members coming and reading even some of the Dr. Seuss books that can be problematic. I also wanted to highlight, not only did our board members attend, but we had our Cactus Shadows High School, I think it was the President's Council or our Student Council, right, Tandell, that came to one of the schools. Some of our student athletes came to read. A few local business owners. We had police officers from Phoenix PD and Scottsdale PD. We had the mayor from the town of Carefree and the mayor from the town of Cave Creek. We had a state representative, and we even had a former Denver Bronco football player, not Russell Wilson, but someone who is now a grandfather, but he was a former NFL player. And at Sonoran Trails Middle School, they got into the spirit of it by making bookmarks for all of the elementary schools and also for Phoenix Children's Hospital, which is pretty neat. I'm also really proud to announce we had some of our Cactus Shadows High School choir students and music students perform at the state auditions in Flagstaff. I want to name a few of them. 2 choir students who are both second chair in their respective sections. Jacob Rollins is a bass, and Madeline Rollins is a soprano. That means they received the second highest score out of all others who auditioned throughout the state. In band, Devin Peace plays the clarinet, Katie Rink, the tenor saxophone, and Ben Sidoti plays the alto saxophone, are all in the top 2 chairs of their respective instruments. Maya Ochoa plays the clarinet, Isabella Duncan plays the flute, and Dan Duffy, percussion, are also doing amazing and enjoying the prize for their hard work it took as they make the honors ensemble. In late-breaking news, I appreciate the music staff told me that Katie Rink was named alternate for sax. Jacob Rollins will be in the 4th chair now for bass vocals and will perform with the All-State Choir April 7th to the 9th at NAU. So we're really proud of those students. Mamma Mia was a resounding success. I didn't quite dance in the aisles at the end like everyone else did, but it was awesome, and it was so inspiring to see Mr. Cupo, the students, the performers, the crew, all the work that went into it was an amazing job. It was a great show. If you haven't been out to our theater to see our amazing students, I would invite you to come out. And finally, our Sonoran Trails Middle School cheer. Remember our great cheer squads at the high school. They have great programs that feed into them. So our Sonoran Trails cheer team, they competed at USA Nationals earlier last month after qualifying at a regional competition. They headed to California for a day at Disneyland and an opportunity to compete against some of the top middle school teams in the nation. They had a fantastic performance, 0 deductions, and they placed 7th at nationals. I'm not a cheer judge. I don't know how that happens with 0 deductions and you place 7th, but we couldn't be more proud of our Stinger cheer team as well. And that's my superintendent report.
Thank you. Number 2, presentation of awards for schools and departments. 2.1, Cactus Shadows High School Excellence Awards, presented by Dr. Court Monroe and Mrs. Sarah Barella.
Okay, Mrs. Barella, do you want to come on up? And we're going to announce some of the wonderful individuals that make Cactus Shadows High School the great school that it is. First, I'll call up Alyssa Erickson. Come on up, Mrs. Erickson. You can stand here, Alyssa. I'm going to read a little, embarrass her a little bit, and we'll talk about how wonderful she is. Alyssa is a dance teacher at Cactus Shadows High School, and did you know she's a 2001 graduate of our high school? She's been a dance teacher in the district for 16 years. 2 of those years she was the department chair for 2 sessions. She exemplifies excellence in everything she does. She expects it from herself and from those around her. She's an advocate for our district, for Cactus Shadows, the students, and the community in general. If you ever need anything, she is the one to go to. As a matter of fact, she was hired at the Fine Arts Center this year to help with the technology because Mr. Cupo was desperate for help. Congratulations, Alyssa. We appreciate you so much. Okay, so I'm going to recognize the student, although he's at a baseball game, okay, but I'd like to read it about him. Antonio Gianni. If you guys know the Gianni family, this is their son, who's a junior at Cactus Shadows High School. Anyone who walks on campus would agree that Antonio is a joy to have in class and to be around. He's a positive role model for all. You'll never see him without a smile on his face. That's very true. At sporting events, he's often the one to lead the nest cheers. He's also a student athlete. He's a member of our varsity baseball team, and he'll continue his academic and baseball career as a University of Kansas Jayhawk. So we congratulate him, and I just wanted to add, not only is Antonio a great student and a great ball player, but he's an even better person when you meet him. So how about a round of applause for Antonio? Okay, finally, our parent volunteer, Jay O'Sullivan. Come on up, Jay. All right, Cactus Shadows High School would like to say thank you and show our appreciation for Jay O'Sullivan. He is the current president of our Falcon Athletic Club, our booster club at the high school for athletics. He spends tireless hours helping athletics in any way that he can. He goes above and beyond helping at concessions with our home games, working with all the teams and fundraising for their programs. He makes an effort to help in any way he can. I might add, he does this with no longer having kids in athletics at the high school. His entire family, including his wife Jessica in the back, daughters Madison, a Cactus Shadows graduate from 21, and sophomore Ashley can be seen volunteering at one of our Cactus Shadows sporting events. Jay is more than just a parent volunteer. He's truly part of the Falcon family. Thank you, Jay. Thank you to the O'Sullivan family for all your support for Cactus Shadows and for our athletics. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3, public comments. Item 3.1, call to the public. So we have one, and I'll read the admonition. According to ARS 38-431.01H, governing board members may not discuss or take legal action on matters raised during an open call to the public. The only allowable responses a governing board member may make are, number 1, board member may respond if there's a direct criticism of the board member. 2, board member may direct staff to look into a matter. Or 3, board member can ask to have this item placed on a future agenda. Speakers need to be mindful of what they say when presenting to the board. Inappropriate comments could be considered slanderous. And our person is Patrick Calvin. And Mr. Calvin, you have 3 minutes.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Monroe, members of the executive team, thank you for letting me get up and speak for a couple of minutes tonight. It's in behalf of the Sonoran Trails boys volleyball team. Again, my name's Patrick Calvin. I got 2 sons. One graduated from Cactus Shadows a couple years ago. He's now on an academic scholarship up at NAU, so thank you for that. The second is Bennett Calvin. He goes to Sonoran Trails. He's on the Sonoran Trails volleyball team this year. Actually, a few of the boys from the team are here tonight just to kind of get a feel for a board meeting. It's rather informational tonight. We're going to be coming to you in the future, talking more in depth, maybe have a few of the members of that team talk. Give you a little history. The boys started in Cactus Shadow, in CCUSD at the elementary level in school-supported volleyball. They followed it through into the YMCA leagues, onto Sonoran Trails, and they're currently even in a competitive league. And I asked the boys after a lot of the games, what do you like about tonight's game or today's game? One of the big things about the Sonoran Trails middle school games is it's the school spirit. They watch the girls' teams play, then the girls watch them. Their friends can show up because there's home games. With club is great, high level of competition, but they're traveling all the way across town. We don't have that school spirit. It's hard to take it with us. So, they're really, only a few have showed up tonight. There's quite a few more on the team. They're very dedicated. They live and breathe volleyball. If it's a backyard net, a pool net, whatever, that's what they've been wanting to do. I know Title IX's one of the issues out there. I've done a lot of research into that, and Title IX's 50 years old. It's evolved a lot over the 50 years, and it was really good to see President Biden speak on behalf of Title IX not so long ago, saying, Title IX's changed through the years. It's great, but it needs to change more, and there needs to be more opportunities out there for students for sports. So that's encouraging, too. Not a whole lot else to say other than thank you. We're looking forward to coming back to a future board meeting and letting you guys hear from the players and other parents. Thank you.
Thank you. Number 4, presentations, information reports. Item 4.1, presentation of the 2020-2021 audits and financial reports, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you. President Hatcher, members of the board. So this evening, we are going to ask the board later on in the board agenda to accept our financial report. So we had 3 reports that we're presenting to you. You've had copies of them presented in your packets. There are the annual comprehensive financial report. There is a single audit report, and there is a compliance questionnaire. So every year we are audited by Heinfeld and Meach this last year. I do have Ms. Shaw here this evening, and she will speak to the process of the audit and kind of give you some information. I will tell you that I have reviewed all of the audits and the findings. I have taken a look at where we have some areas to improve upon. So I look at the audits as a learning opportunity, especially coming new into the district. Kind of allows me to assess maybe some areas where we need to do some additional training of staff, or maybe we need to put some processes in place where we don't have processes in place. So I'm using this as a tool. So I've taken it and identified all of the findings that we've had and identified the departments that potentially support these areas, and I am working with them currently. We have training. We have opportunities next year with our early release PD, train our registrars at our schools, train our fixed asset managers, train our administrative assistants on, purchasing, things like that. So I really want to just give you guys a little bit of a background on how I use audits as a tool. And these audits are very visible. So we have to upload them to the State Department, and they're all on their website now. We send them to the Auditor General's office for review. We send them to the Grants Management to review. They're going to be posted on our website. We submit them to a clearinghouse for our bonds. So it's a very important document. I take this very seriously. I love working with Heinfeld and Meach. They're amazing. Very good as far as not only, identifying, helping us work through having a comprehensive audit that wins awards, but also just their ability to work with staff as well, and kind of coach and assist and give them support so that when they come in, the staff is not afraid. This is not an I gotcha. We're not here to put the hammer down, but we're here to help you be better. And that's how we work with them. So I want to turn it over to Jill. She's going to go over the process with you, and then if you have any questions of me or Jill, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Marcy. President Hatcher, members of the board, Superintendent Monroe, thank you for having me here this evening to talk about the audit. And one of the documents that we issue as part of the audit as well is what we call the Audit Communication to Governance. So it's a letter that covers things that our audit standards require that we cover. So if there was anything of a serious nature, any unusual or disagreements, they would be in that letter. But it's also nice when we are invited to board meetings like this so we can present the contents of that letter in a format like this rather than reading. I'm sure you all, at the end of the day, that's one less thing to read. So I did email that letter to President Hatcher back in December when the audit was finalized. And so that is available, though, if you would like to see it. Well, let's see. I'm doing something wrong. Oh, there we go.
Jill, let me turn that on.
Just not patient enough.
While you're doing that, we had this letter, this document was sent to us, or just to Member Hatcher?
I just emailed it to President Hatcher.
But did you send it out?
I don't remember.
I said I didn't have this
Don't
in my
remember.
packet, so I don't know. This is the first time I've seen this summary.
Oh, she's referring to the letter in December. I'll have to check back to see if that letter was sent to the board, the one from December.
Well, is the information that she's going to go over is also included in that letter?
That is correct. This is a summary of everything that's in the letter.
So this is the first time the board's seen this then, other than Member Hatcher?
All of the presentations, all of the audits the board has those, but I'll have to check back to see if the letter was sent in December. I don't remember. I don't want to misspeak. But all of the presentations that she's going over, all of the audits were in the packet provided to the board.
Yeah, I have the audits. That's not a problem. The summary might have been nice to have with that as I'm reviewing 200 pages of audit information. So just if it's available, I think I'd like to see it.
I will check back to see if I forwarded that letter in December or not.
All right. So my name is Jill Shaw. I'm with Heinfeld Meach, the external CPA firm that completes the annual audit for the district. And I'm the engagement partner, so I oversee the audit process from start to finish. Before I get into this, I would first just like to thank Marcy and her entire department for all of their help. This ends up being about a 9-month process, and so there are probably hundreds of documents that are provided to us throughout the audit process, and so the staff are very diligent at getting us what we need so that we can get the audit completed in a timely manner. This is the 5th year of the audit contract, so the 5th and final year. The scope of the audit includes the financial statement audit, which is what most people think of when they think of the audit, but it also includes an audit under uniform guidance, which is federal guidance, and results in the single audit report that we are going to go over in a little bit. And then the last piece of the audit scope is the Uniform System of Financial Records Compliance Questionnaire. So we refer to that as the USFR Compliance Questionnaire. And that is a roughly 40-page questionnaire that highlights different things that the Auditor General wants us to look at to ensure that the district is in compliance with state statutes. So here are just the different reports that are issued along with the audit process, and I'm going to go over each of these in a little bit of detail. And here's the timeline I was referring to. So in about the summertime, we start by issuing the engagement audit letter. And then in the summer, we also come out and complete preliminary field work. So on that trip, we spend a lot of time looking at compliance-related items, so those USFR questions and state compliance that we need to look at, federal compliance, because at that point, the fiscal year hasn't been quite closed out yet. The annual financial report hasn't been filed. So we do a lot of things that we can do even though the fiscal year isn't over yet. And then we come back out in October and we complete what we call final field work, and that is after the AFR is filed on October 15th. So the books are finalized at that point, and that's where we get into a lot of the numbers and what people traditionally think of as an audit, where we look at the supporting documentation for all of the numbers and then wrap up any compliance-related items that we needed to wrap up from our preliminary visits. All of that results in the audit reports that were issued. So those were issued on December 21st this year. And then one of the many places that the audit report goes is the Federal Audit Clearinghouse. In January, the single audit report and the annual comprehensive financial report were uploaded to the Federal Audit Clearinghouse, as well as all of those other places that Marcy mentioned. And then on February 2nd, the USFR Compliance Questionnaire was finalized, and that was the last step of the audit process that that finalized everything. So the statutory deadline for all of these reports is March 31st. So it's a great sign that the district met all of the deadlines, and we're coming to you with a couple of months or a couple of weeks to go before that deadline has formally hit. So some of the items that we're required to communicate with you is that within the audit report, there are several estimates in the financial statements. So things like capital asset, depreciate based on useful lives that are an estimate. Pension liabilities are based on actuarial liabilities that are done. So those are just some of the estimates that are in the financial statements, and these are things that our standards require that we communicate. Another thing is that we encountered no difficulties in performing the audit. So management was very cooperative, provided us with what we needed in order to get the audit done in a timely manner. We also had no disagreements with management over how to take care of audit standards, accounting standards, how to apply, the debits and credits of the financial statements and what the transactions should look like. We had no disagreements there. And then at the end of the audit, management is required to sign a letter called a representation letter that they sign that says that they gave us everything that we required during the audit and that they are taking responsibility for the accuracy of the financial statements and all of the internal controls. Another key part of the audit process is that we also have to comply as an audit firm with our ethical standards. And the biggest part of those ethical standards is the independence requirements. So we are very cognizant of providing services that don't cross that independence line so that we can remain objective in our services and meet our ethical requirements as well. So the largest report that is issued as a result of the audit is called the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. That is the document that includes the auditor's report, independent auditor's report. This year on page 1, you can see that report, and we were able to issue an unmodified opinion, which is also known as a clean opinion. So that means that we did not detect any material misstatements or modifications to the financial statements. So that is really good news. That's the best type of an opinion that the district can get from an independent auditor. And just to highlight some other pieces of the audit, as a board member, you might be interested in the management's discussion and analysis. That is the portion of the audit report that summarizes not only the numbers and how they changed from the previous year, but also adds some narrative in there. So at a high level, you can see, if revenues increased, why did they increase? Or if expenses increased, why did they increase? And then also available in that report is the financial statements themselves, as well as the notes to the financial statements. So those notes give more details to the numbers, such as when certain bonds come due, and the nitty-gritty details there. And then lastly, the last piece of the report is an unaudited section called the statistical section that is also interesting because it provides 10 years of historical data. It also has other reports that talk about who are the district's top 10 taxpayers and just some other information that adds context to the financial statements themselves. The single audit portion of the audit is another separate report, and the district requires a single audit because they spend more than $750,000 in federal awards in a year. So within this report, if the district has findings that are of a more serious nature, this is the report that they would be found in. It reports not only on if we've found misstatements, but also on the internal controls of the district. So when I say internal controls, those are the policies and procedures that are in place to prevent things from going wrong. So oftentimes during audits, we won't necessarily find a misstatement in the financial statements, but we'll find a weakness in internal control that could lead to a misstatement. So those are the types of things that would also be reported within this report. As part of the single audit, we are required to rotate which federal programs we look at in any given year. And this last year, we looked at the Coronavirus Relief Fund. Due to those new COVID-19 monies, it was the first round of COVID funding through the CARES Act. We also looked at the Usfr funds, which is another COVID-based federal funds that came through, and then also the child nutrition cluster. Historically, the child nutrition cluster is not rise to a level where it gets audited within the single audit, but this year, because meals were free and that was coming through the NSLP program at the federal level, that raised those dollars and they hit the audit threshold this year. So as a result of auditing those federal programs, we had no findings that were specific to those programs, and we found no non-compliance within how those monies were spent or how those programs were administered. Within the internal controls over the financial statements, we did have one finding that we reported as a material weakness, which related to reporting of an energy capital lease agreement. Due to some turnover in the district, there was just an adjustment that was necessary to get a capital lease, the capital asset portion of the lease, into the district's general ledger. So that adjustment was made, and management is aware of that adjustment. I mentioned previously before the USFR, so this is the 40-page document that highlights a lot of different areas where the district needs to be in compliance with state statute. So these are just a variety of some of the areas that we look at, things like procurement, student attendance, payrolls, student activities, and within this document there are over 400 individual questions within those 40 pages. So we did have a few minor non-compliance items that we noted, which is very typical of school district audits and other school districts, because with that many questions and with manual processes behind some of these, there's just a human element of, a few errors are going to be found when we're looking at 400 different things. So there are a few things to note there, minor items. As I mentioned, just from a high level, the audit results are that the audit reports all met the appropriate deadlines. In addition, they met the GFOA submission deadline of December 31st, so the district can apply for different certificates of excellence, and those appear in the very front of the annual comprehensive financial report, and those are awards that the district has received for years. In addition, there are continuing bond disclosure deadlines that were February 1st, so the reports were issued within time to meet that deadline as well. And then the ultimate federal and state statutory deadlines of March 31st, this is all being done well before that deadline. So just some final comments. As I mentioned, management and staff were very cooperative and helpful throughout the process in getting us what we need. There is a new accounting standard next year that management will want to take a look at with regards to leases, and always something new with accounting. So that'll be something that's talked about next year. And as Marcy mentioned, this is a new requirement. This is a new state statute this year that school district boards, that they publicly accept via a roll call vote the audit reports. So the audit reports have already been approved, and management has signed the representation letter at the end of the audit, accepting responsibilities for those. And the spirit of the legislation was really to ensure that boards were seeing the audit results and were having a chance to review those and ask questions in the event that they, didn't typically see those results. So I know that was a lot, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the audit process or the audit results.
Yeah, I just got a couple of things I'd like to just kind of clarify kind of on a big picture. Because I know that sometimes people look at these audits and the compliance findings and they see the no's and they immediately think something negative. I think Ms. Rodriguez kind of already addressed this a little bit, but I just wanted to go over it a little bit more. And the thing that I was looking at when I was reading this is where I work, we just had an audit of our IEP system. And there were findings. Some of them were important, so you had to be addressed right away. And then there were some that were more minor that you just have to adjust your findings. That's kind of what this is too, right?
Exactly. Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
The reporting and members of the board. So, Mr. Ford, you bring up a great concern about what school districts go through as audits. This audit is just one of many. So our district has been through over 12 audits in the last year. As a matter of fact, my last financial facts, the learning series, was over our audits and what type of audits we have, various ones. So that's a perfect example of our special ed audit. We also have an ABM audit, we have grants management audit, but this is really our big one because it produces our financial statement, and we want to make sure that our financials are represented accurately. So I appreciate that comment.
So I just wanted to just ask you then, what would you say to those folks that do see these no's and think, oh, it's they're doing something wrong, or it's malfeasance, or it's incompetence? How do you address those at that level?
Yeah, so a couple of things. First is that some of those items that are noted, the majority of the things in the USFR are always going to be of a more minor nature. So it could be something just that we look that a receipt needs to get to the bank by 10 days. Maybe it got there in 15 instead. So, okay, something that it can be looked at. But also there's just a human element there of maybe that was a really crazy week, and generally speaking, they, 95% of the receipts got to the bank on time, and there was, a handful that didn't. So I would take, each of these. Another thing that I would recommend looking at is in each of the USFR areas, it's always a good sign when the no's are sprinkled throughout. So if you have 10 no's and they're in 10 different areas, that might indicate that there's just, little tweaks that need to be made. Whereas if all 10 no's are in the same area, that can indicate that that area really does have some more serious things to look at. So in the district's case, because they are sprinkled throughout different areas and, things that we just noted during the audit, that's a good sign that there isn't one area in particular that really needs attention.
And there was from what I was counting, about 130 yes, everything's good, and about 17 no's. Is that ratio, how does that ratio compare to other audits that you've seen, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, I would say the district's audit results are very common for what we see. I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've only seen one instance of a district for 1 year where they didn't have any no's. So it's just not very common. We look at, because within each of those questions, there's, questions within questions. And so, as I mentioned, we end up looking ultimately at way more than 100 things. It ends up being more like 400 items that we look at within each of, if you count up the items that are within each of those questions.
Thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Ms. Shaw, can we go back to the single audit reporting package? And can you give us a little more information or a little more background on the item that you found that was not in compliance?
Yeah, so the item that was that we found was an audit adjustment that was necessary. The district had entered into a lease for energy improvements, and as those the lease proceeds were deposited into an escrow account, and then as the contractor did work, they would send invoices to the district, which were approved by management and then sent on so that they could be paid. The entry was necessary because those energy improvements were not recorded as construction in progress within the district's capital asset records, offset by the corresponding lease liability. So that was something that, for GAAP basis financial statements, needs to be recorded so that when the project is done, it can begin depreciating as a regular capital asset would.
So in this energy capital lease agreement, there was taxpayer money went to the district, and then we spent that on that lease agreement. So those invoices should have came back through our financial department before they were paid?
Well, the invoices were approved by the finance department
So-
before they were paid.
So where was the adjustment then had to be made?
Sure.
Thank you, Member Brown, for the question. So the process was, we're leasing from the bank. The bank is issuing the payments. The payment record never went through our financials because it was done through the bank. At the time, the payments then for the lease start when the project is complete. So when the lease payments are then starting July 1st after last year's fiscal year, that's when it gets recorded in our financials. So we need to be cognizant of, in the future, when we have money paid on our behalf that doesn't go through our financials, that we are still recognizing that as an asset. The project was complete after the fiscal year was over last year, so as Ms. Shaw had said, it was construction in progress. Those assets have since been recorded in our financial assets in our accounting system, and then we'll offset it as we, do the financial accounting GL type of things in the background when those lease payments come through. But it was just an oversight, and it was a transition. I mean, those lease payments those invoices were paid prior to the beginning of this fiscal year.
And this was for the capital lease, this was the project, that the district entered into, what was supposed to be a savings program for the district?
Correct. So as I understand, it was presented to the board actually back when Dr. Friesman was here, and then was executed last year, and then now it's been complete, and we are tracking it for savings. Yes, we are, sir.
So there's no more payments being made through the bank?
That is correct.
That account is,
The escrow account has been closed out since, and now we are making the lease payments to the bank for that.
is it unusual that was set up that way?
No, that is common that it is set up that way with lease agreements.
We just missed the recording or the reporting part on our end.
Correct. So when those invoices came through for us to approve the payments to the contractor, at that point, those invoices should be recorded in our financials, which moving forward, if we enter into that type of an agreement again, we will make sure it's done.
And we have record of all that prior invoices and payments that are made. I mean, we have a full, complete picture of that.
Yes.
The financial
Yes,
picture.
Yes, we do have that.
I mean, it was a sizable amount, so I want to make sure we're
Yes, sir.
true and proper on that.
We have accurate records of that, yes, sir.
Okay.
I want to make a comment about how you opened your comments up. And so it's not directly about anything in particular. I just want to clarify something. The letter that you sent to me in December was contained in our package to the entire board. It looked like the same to me. When I receive tangible items, and this isn't for you, this is for the board's benefit, such as that letter, it did appear to me that it was addressed to me from your firm, so I know that information received to when the president receives information, it should go to the board. And this is the first time that I've received anything that I recall other than legal advice in terms of how to run a meeting. And so when I received that letter, I just want to make it very clear. I did contact administration and said, did the board receive this? And if they haven't, please, see that they do. So I want the board to know that. And if you're blind copied, I would have no way of knowing that. So just to clear that.
So you're saying we did receive that letter?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know?
No,
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just, yeah. And I don't want to get off down that way. I just want to make sure that was very clear. Are there any more questions for the two presenters?
Ms. Rodriguez, do we have any other capital lease agreements that we're working on at this time?
No, Member Brown, members of the board, we have no open lease working right now in construction in front of us. We have finalized everything, and we are now making those lease payments on the previous leases that we have.
Okay, thank you.
There's one item on here that I want to ask about on the questionnaire. Let me find it for a second. Has to do with, sorry. If anybody has a question, go ahead. Yeah. It's item number 8 under information technology, and they talk about formal contracts or agreements in place and third parties that have access to district data that addresses security measures. I'm not quite sure I understand that, and I guess it's not necessary that I understand in particular, but it was cited as a no, and so if it's a security issue, what are we doing to correct it? They're talking about vendor contracts and data sharing agreements.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board. On that particular item, it talks about district had vendor contracts for data sharing agreements in place with third parties assessing or hosting the district data that address controls to support security and processing integrity, backup procedures if applicable before data is accessed or shared. So it does not have formal contracts or agreements in place with third parties to access. So this is about the different companies that we use to host and hold our data. Now, it doesn't mean our data is not secure. Our data probably is very secure. We work with some very reputable companies, i.e., Infinite Campus for our student management system, Visions for our financial system. I am sure that those agreements exist. They just weren't available to share with the auditors when they came. So that is one of the areas. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. But I'm already addressing that. So the different software companies that we work with that store data for us. Next time when the auditors come, we will have those agreements in place to share with them.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions on the reports? No? Okay.
I just want to thank Michelle for coming out here and sharing this. We will have an item further on the agenda where we will be asking you to accept these 3 major reports this evening.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All righty, moving on, number 5, action consent. Is there a motion to approve item 5 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 5, action consent as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain. The motion carries. Item 5 is approved as presented. All right, item 5.2, human resource items presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that the governing board approve the
So moved.
Second?
Okay, questions?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. I see that there's a job description for an executive director of human resources. So does that mean we've changed our org chart?
Member Busby, the answer is yes. The org chart that you had at the last meeting might have been a few iterations in the past, but the new job description that's before the board would be a cabinet level position, an executive director of human resources. So yes.
So understanding what you're saying, this is in essence a different position than it was before.
Correct. Throughout the job description, there's various areas that have been enhanced in the job description to bring it up to the executive level. So yes, it would. That's why it's in front of the board, because of the significant changes to it, so the board could review it prior to approval.
Okay, my only other question is just for clarification. On the qualifications, it's very heavy on wanting and I understand the teacher certificate, or a master's in administration, but it seems like it's more focused on school as opposed to an emphasis on the human resources knowledge piece of it.
Member Busby, members of the board, I could see where you could get that temperature. It's my opinion that effective HR directors at times have a public school leadership background, and other times they come from the private sector. So we were trying to throw a broad net out there as far as, for example, master's degree, a minimum of that. That could happen in employee relations, such as human resources. A doctorate would certainly be preferred, because we really need to have some creative thinking at the HR level to recruit and retain our employees. And then the minimum of 5 years experience was definitely a change from the previous job description. So to your point, we want to get someone who's pretty steeped in leadership, some of the human resource processes that can help lead out in this area for us.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 5.2 as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained. Motion carries. Item 5.2 is approved as presented.
President Hatcher, members of the board, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce two of the new leaders that we are super excited to have come on board. So I'm going to ask Mr. Ammon to come up to the microphone and read a little bit about him. Mr. Drew Ammon is finishing up his 9th year of teaching, his 15th year of coaching in the state of Arizona. He started his coaching career at his high school alma mater, which is Millennium High School. He began his teaching career at Combs High School in Santan Valley, where he coached multiple sports at multiple levels. He continued both his coaching and teaching career at Tempe High, where he served as the defensive coordinator for the varsity football team. He's taught world history, U.S. government, and econ, as well as both of those disciplines at the AP level, which is awesome. Mr. Ammon earned his Bachelor's of Science degree from NAU in secondary education with an emphasis in social studies. He went on to GCU to earn his Master's in education with an emphasis in educational administration. In his free time, he enjoys the great outdoors with his family or exploring the beautiful golf courses across our amazing state. He and his family are excited to join the Falcon family, continue the excellence and tradition that has been established with regards to academics and athletics. And so I'm really excited to announce our new athletic director, assistant principal, Mr. Drew Ammon.
Thank you, Dr. Monroe. President Hatcher, members of the board, I want to say thank you for this amazing opportunity to serve this amazing community of Cave Creek and Cactus Shadows as the next assistant principal and athletic director. I also want to say thank you to my wife for supporting me in my numerous adventures in the educational world. I look forward to working with each and every one of you to help fulfill the district's mission of inspiring excellence and our vision of being able to inspire students to become independent, contributing, and engaged members of society. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
Aaron, come on up. I'd like to introduce Mrs. Aaron Cher. She has spent her career as an educator. She began as a high school CTE teacher, so that's career and technical education, within family and consumer science. After several years in the classroom and earning a school counseling license, she moved into the role of a high school counselor. In this role, she provided comprehensive support for all our students to ensure that they were prepared for their lives after high school. She continued her school leadership pathway. She spent the last several years as a building and district leader and administrator. Her most recent role has been as the Director of Career and Technical Education, where she oversees the growth, development, and compliance of CTE pathways in partnership with district, local, and state stakeholders to create multiple pathways for students after high school. Personally, Erin is married to her husband, Jeff, in the back, and they live in North Phoenix. They have a busy house with Jeff's 4 children and 1 spoiled pup. Erin enjoys cooking, Pilates, walking her dog, traveling to new places, and visiting friends and family in the Midwest. We're really excited to have Erin as our Director of College and Career Readiness.
President Hatcher, members of the board, Dr. Monroe, and community, thank you for providing me this opportunity. I'm thrilled to be part of the Cave Creek Unified School District. I look forward to partnering with staff, students, parents, and community members to ensure that all our students have viable pathways to their post-secondary goals. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Dr. Monroe, may I ask a question at the moment? Our current athletic director, is her last day is June 11th, but our new athletic director is not scheduled to start till July 18th. So who's going to manage that month?
Mrs. Scott, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. Member Brown, our assistant principal athletic director is actually on that 11-month contract. So as passed, Tandell would complete her role June 11th and then doesn't start back up till that second or third week of July. So that's going to continue as is. But I know that Mr. Emmons already been on campus and working very closely with Tandell to make sure that we have that plan in place so that as soon as he comes in, we're going to have that smooth transition in place. So he's already set different times throughout the year and over the summer to come in and meet with her. We're very excited to have him on board and excited to have Ms. Cher on board also as our College and Career Readiness Director.
All right, thank you.
Number 6, old business, item 6.1, approval of administrative contract language and exhibits for the 2022-2023 school year. Presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board. This item was actually brought to the board at our last board meeting, and there were some adjustments that were asked to be made to the exhibits. So this evening, we have some of those things that we've changed. If we look at the administrative exhibits, you'll see the yellow highlighted portions of those. Those were some of the changes, the recommendations that were made. That we take a look at, and we brought those back to you with some clarification of language. And then we also have the administrative contract, the share that we shared with you last time. And then we changed the chief financial officer exhibit to read cabinet exhibit based on some recommendations from our board. So I move that the governing board approve the administrative contract language and the exhibits for the 2022 to 2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second?
Any questions or comments?
On Exhibit A for the administrator benefits for the full 12 month. Under insurance, the highlighted part says administrator will pick between the 2 free plans. Why are we going to fund the 2 plans? Because there is, it's a $31 difference, but why are we funding 2 instead of picking the lower option and having the other ones as buy-up plans?
Members of the board, that information was shared with the IDN team, and at the last meeting, we shared the recommendation. So that was the agreement and the recommendation
Personally, I love an HSA plan. And each employee can then choose to have additional funds from their paycheck go into that HSA for the tax savings as well, correct?
Yes, thank you, Member
Okay.
Walker, that is correct.
Other questions?
On the second page of that, the administrator benefits full 12-month, the highlighted at the top, the vehicle allowance, who will fall into that? Who are we classifying as receiving that vehicle allowance?
All directors. So any position that has a director title will receive that.
How many positions is that?
We're not talking just executive directors, we're talking all directors?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Member Brown. In the last document, it had each individual director lined out, the title of all of the directors. This will encompass then just all directors instead of having all of them named.
When you brought the information to us last month and you told us the additional costs to the district and the various breakdowns, this was all included in that?
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher. The benefits for the administrators have, this particular exhibit has not changed. So the dollar value for what we're offering them is the same as it is in this current year.
Okay, help me understand something. Last month when we talked about this, with this car allowance, in the prior contracts, there were 4 positions that got this car stipend or vehicle stipend. But with this administrator's benefit, it goes from four positions to 9, which ends up being over a $14,000 difference. So where are we coming up with the 14?
I'm trying to do the quick math of how many directors, maybe 4? What do you think, Marcy? How many directors?
Thank you, Member Busby, that is correct. So the directors for academic services have not received this in the past.
Yeah, so this is, so there's an additional over $14,000 that's going to come to our bottom line.
That is correct, and yes, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I believe that it was just the operations directors in the past, so technology, food service, transportation,
And human resources.
and human resources.
And we're doing this because we're trying to be competitive, I would assume.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher. We are trying to be competitive, and we're also trying to be equitable for like positions. So as brought to our attention, we want to make sure we're not discriminating against one type of level on that org chart. So if one director is receiving a benefit, then we want to make sure we're equitable, that people that are at that same level are receiving that benefit as well.
I think it's very prudent that you're doing this. Where are we pulling the additional funds from?
So thank you, Member Busby, that is a great question. So if you recall the IBN presentation, the monies that we had available to us as far as what I'm projecting for budget capacity next year and budget savings because of the vacancy savings that we had, there was a disparity there. So there was some money still left on the table for things that we could use moving forward in the tune of about $15,000 to $20,000. So that would be where the additional would come from. We just felt that it was important. We heard the board's concerned about equity and felt that we needed to treat all directors the same.
Okay, so, I reiterate, I think it's good that you're doing this. So where the money's coming from, it's not, if I'm understanding you correctly, it was like found money that, okay, we can use this to cover this expense. Then what are we going to do going forward? Because are we going to be in a position next year where, well, gee, we can't do this car allowance now?
Well, thank you. Member Bussey, that is a very good question. And yes, we review our benefits, our salaries every year, and look at available funds. Is it possible that things can get adjusted in future years? Absolutely. But we will make sure that we are always able to fund that. If not, then we'll bring recommendations to the board to make changes.
Okay, thank you.
And this reminds me of teaching contracts, and that even though we sign at the beginning of the year for a certain dollar amount, in that contract, it states that it can change if something happens with state funding. And that means it can go down. So, in this business, and probably in others too, it just seems so, capricious in a way, the funding situation. So, while we may not be able to guarantee next year, year after rather, we can do it this year.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher. Yes, that is true based on the estimates and projections with the information that I have at the current time. One of the challenging things that changed for school districts is school districts used to do prior year count funding.
Yeah.
And what they've done to us is put us on current year count, which means I have to be a prognosticator on how many students do I think are coming next year. I can't base it on what our 100th day is right now, which would be great. That would pretty much be guaranteed, as close as we can based on what the state legislature is going to do. But yeah, we're projecting on next year's money. And so I'm pretty confident. I've been watching those ADM numbers all year, and I'm pretty confident that we have a steady enrollment now.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
So we're actually going to approve what looks like 3 different exhibits, but it all falls under the administrator contract. Because you have Exhibit A for cabinet members, then you have Exhibit A, administrator benefits for full 12-month, and then Exhibit A, administrator benefits less than 12-month.
Yes, Member Brown, that is correct. That's what we were asking the board to approve this evening.
Because the cabinet member benefits is the one that we kind of tabled and you brought back for us tonight.
Member Brown, that is correct, but we also made some adjustments to the language in the other exhibits as well, based on the number of days that they earn. So the yellow highlights in the administrator's full 12-month and the administrator's less than 12 months. And then clarification on how the medical insurance is paid for by the district for the administrators.
So then of the contract Exhibit A cabinet member benefits, now how many employees are receiving that specific contract?
Thank you, Member Brown. Members of the board, those under cabinet, currently there are 3 cabinet members. And with the approval of the executive director for human resource, there will now be 4.
And then the rest of the directors fall under the full 12-month, if they're,
Full 12-month, correct, and then we have 2 assistant principals that fall under the less than 12 months. Actually, I apologize, Member Brown, I believe we have 3.
no, I believe one of those is a 12-month contract.
Yes, thank you, Member Brown. We also have an assistant principal at the middle school that falls under the less than.
Okay, thank you.
When the administration brings these kinds of things to the board, I'm assuming that you already know how you're going to pay for them, right? You're not just saying, "Here, board, wave that magic wand." I mean, you're thinking we can pay for them. You're knowing we can pay for them in this calendar, the upcoming calendar year, right?
Yes, President Hatcher, members of the board, that is absolutely true. If we felt like we couldn't honor these contracts and the benefits within the exhibits, we would not bring them to the board. That would be unfair to the employees that were offering those contracts and those exhibits.
For clarification, I wasn't asking, could we afford to do this? I was just merely asking where the money was coming from. I have full faith that you're only bringing something with the understanding that we've got the funds to pay for it. So I was asking, which bucket is it coming out of? Is what I was asking.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to, I wasn't implying that, any of that. I just wanted to make sure anybody that might listen to us understood that. So, okay, any other questions or comments about these exhibits? All right. Hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 6.1, approval of administrative contract language and exhibits for the 2022-2023 school year as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. The motion carries. Item 6.1 has been approved as presented. Item number 7, new business, item 7.1. Acceptance of the 2020-2021 single audit, annual comprehensive financial report and compliance questionnaire presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher and members of the board. This was information that was shared with you earlier by myself and Ms. Shaw from Untitled Chapter. As stated in ARS, Arizona's revised statute, 15-914, school district governing boards must publicly accept the 2020-2021 single audit, annual comprehensive financial report, and compliance questionnaire by a roll call. So this is a little different than our normal acceptance and voting. The compliance questionnaire was presented to the governing board. So it is recommended by administration that the governing board accept the 2020-2021 single audit, annual comprehensive financial report, and compliance questionnaire as presented.
And we will do a roll call vote. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We had a robust conversation, so I'm assuming there are no more questions or comments. It's been moved and seconded to accept item 7.1, acceptance of 2020-2021 single audit, annual comprehensive financial report and compliance questionnaires presented. We'll do a roll call vote. Member Brown?
No.
Member Walker?
Aye.
Member Fortney?
Aye.
I am an aye because acceptance doesn't necessarily mean I like findings, but rather than I accept the findings of what has occurred. So that is my aye. Member Busby?
No.
All right. Motion carries. Item 7.1 is accepted by a 3-2 vote. Item 7.2, approval of 2% increase for all employee groups for fiscal year 2023. Presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Thank you. President Hatcher, members of the board, the administration and IBN presented to you at our last work study, and we shared information about our financials, about our projections for next year. We've identified the amount that the district will be able to afford to give increases to our staff, and with that, I move that the governing board approve a 2% increase for all employee groups for the fiscal year 2023 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments?
Yeah, I do have a question. When it says all employee groups, does that include the superintendent?
Member Busby, thank you for that. No, well, that's a good question.
Yeah, Member Busby, if I'm not mistaken, there's wording in the superintendent contract that the board approved that says that that is correct, that raise happens for the superintendent as well, the same amount as the employee groups.
Other questions? Any more questions or comments?
So on here for administration, that's reflective of an additional 2% in the superintendent's salary also?
Yes, he was included in the calculation number.
Okay.
How is it that the superintendent's included as a employee group when he has a specific contract just with the governing board? He's not part of the IBN negotiation.
Thank you, Member Brown. Yes, as Dr. Monroe shared, in his contract, there is language that he will receive the same level of annual increase as other life administrators. And so I am asking that the governing board honor the language of his contract.
Any other comments, questions?
Is there a way we could table this to allow us a chance to review that contract? Because I didn't anticipate that the superintendent was included as an employee group, and I would have pulled the contract to cross-reference that before the meeting tonight.
Member Brown, thank you for the question. My concern about pulling this and tabling this item is that it is contingent for the governing board to approve the 2%, to approve future items in the meeting, salary schedules. Those salary schedules have that 2% included on them. If we were to pull this item, that means that teacher contracts will be delayed because we won't have an approved salary schedule to issue those contracts on.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand.
So are you withdrawing the motion to table, or,
It wasn't a motion as much as a question.
oh, okay.
I'm not pleased with how the information has now come out, but I definitely don't want to jam up contracts going out to our staff. So I'm in a bit of between a rock and a hard place here on this item to vote, but I understand we're up against a deadline, so it will be something that will definitely be brought up with the superintendent's evaluation. Guarantee that.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.2, approval of 2% increase for all employee groups for fiscal year 2023 as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained. The motion carries. Item 7.2 is approved as presented. Item 7.3, approval of medical benefits for 2022-2023, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher and members of the board. This information regarding our recommendation to approve the as-baked membership was presented at the work study at our last meeting. We discussed the options for the plans that we are recommending that get approved. These were vetted by the IBN committee. We're making this recommendation this evening. I do have Sean from ASBAE here present. If there are any further questions about ASBAE or the coverages that we're recommending this evening. So I move that the governing board approve the medical benefits recommendations for the 2022-2023 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I have a couple of questions. Excuse me. If you scroll back up to the front page of this agenda item, there it is. You've got dollar amount $101,280. But if you scroll down to the bottom a little bit farther, the actual cost to the district is $2,830,776. So that 101,000 is just the increase. That's not the cost of the benefits, correct?
Yeah, thank you, Member Brown, for that clarification. Yes, so the total contribution, so the financial impact of this decision you're making this evening is we're already currently paying that $2.7 million. We're asking you to approve an additional $101,280 in your decision this evening.
Okay, and then in the item that we got, the agreement for participation, I believe that came from ASBATE. There's a couple of line items in here that I just had a question about. The first, let me find it here. Basically, it's on the second page underneath the bullet point number 3 that's at the top of the page. It's kind of an awkward way of saying that, but basically the question is that member districts can be assessed extra funds if the board of director of ASBAT determines that they're insolvent. So we're kind of entering into this with a blind eye, not knowing that if sometime down the road, in the next 12 months, if we do approve this contract, that $2.8 million may end up being more out of our budget.
I have the document that you're referring to, and this has been reviewed by our legal. And if I could ask Sean to come and get clarification on, can you, I'm looking for that language that you're referring to, so.
Right underneath item 3 on that second page, keep scrolling down, that rather large paragraph right there. That's it. About halfway through that is determined by the trustees that the trust is insolvent. Appropriate reserves for purpose of paying reasonably anticipated claims. The trust may assess each participating member, including the district, pro rata basis calculated on the amount of each district's annual contribution. So basically, if they mismanage the fund, they've got an easy out. They can just, oh, hey, guess what? Our 100 school districts, you guys pony up a little more money. Or we didn't anticipate an increase in insurance costs as all the other costs are going up. So where's our safety net to prevent us from getting poked for a little more money after that first $2.8+ million?
Would you like me to address that? Mr. Brown, it's an excellent question, and I think it's prudent that you're reviewing the contract in such detail, because that is actually a pretty rare attribute.
Well, I don't think our legal counsel, whomever that might have been, would have caught that, because I think that's an awfully open-ended item to just rubber stamp that somebody reviewed it and said it was okay.
Understood.
I don't think you'd enter in any contract that would have that kind of verbiage.
Understood. So the unique quality of an insurance trust that is built by districts is that it's not an insurance company that you're entering into a contract with. It's with a trust that is formed of member districts for the benefit of the districts. So it is a component of that is that you review the financial stability and reserves of the trust of the member districts, and review that the trust is appropriately funded and has in their history. So one of the things that is very important when you're entering into a contract with an insurance trust of this type of member districts, and there are a number in the state of Arizona, is to look at the history and the longevity and the way they manage the reserves in our financial reports and audits. And I'm proud to say that ASBATE has not had to do that in its history. So we have 40 years of history, so we're the longest standing trust in Arizona. It's not been a requirement to do that in the past, and I'll tell you that the reserves are healthy. Our most recent annual report came out. We have not had any reserve deficits, nothing anticipated. In fact, the COVID's impact on healthcare actually caused healthcare utilization to go down quite a bit just because of the nature of what happened. And it actually funded reserves more than expected. So our annual report is actually posted online on the website, and you'd be obviously welcome to review that.
Thank you very much, Sean. And Member Brown,
And Mr. Brown, if I may actually comment a little further and pontificate, if you'll allow me to do that. The way the trust is built as formative member districts, it is what you might call like a self-funded insurance pool. And that's different from you were previously buying insurance and paying just a premium to an insurance company. And it's different in its risk components, and that's why the trust needs to be managed very well, but it also causes a significant reduction in cost. And it's something like a continuum down the spectrum of large, especially private sector companies or large school districts will go fully self-funded. And you can imagine if you are a self-funded school district, you really have no protections against that. You pay what's called a stop-loss insurance premium, and then you really literally pay the health insurance claims of your employees when they go visit the doctor or the hospital or whatever. So this is certainly not to that level of risk of a complete unknown, but you do get a lot of the advantages of self-funding. So I understand what you're saying from a contractual perspective, and I think I appreciate those comments. And that's why we have to be, so forthright with our financial reporting. But this does benefit the district significantly from a cost standpoint because you're not paying, there's a profit margin that the insurance companies are charging you from a risk charge perspective.
One other item, and indulge me if I'm asking a very basic question. ASBATE is totally funded from the districts. What is your connection then to the Arizona School Board Association, the association proper? Just like our legal, we pay a yearly stipend basically for the legal services from ASBA. But are you guys, is ASBATE fall under the same umbrella? Are you separate from them? The reason I'm asking, eventually, there's a Senate bill down at the Capitol right now, Senate Bill 1011, which is going to prohibit school districts from using tax monies to pay for membership into a state or national school board association. If that Senate bill passes, that means Arizona School Board Association is now all of a sudden going to have to find a different way to fund their business. And districts obviously won't be able to use taxpayer money to pay our membership fees. That will probably also come up against with our whatever we pay into the lawyers and to the trust for legal counsel. So is there some sort of mechanism that then you're able, or the ASBATE is able, that will have to separate from ASBA in order for the districts to pay for their insurance? Because if we can't pay to join ASBA proper, I would assume then that would also roll over into taxpayer monies going for the insurance piece.
Ron, I'm familiar with exactly what you're talking about. It's a complicated issue, and I will obviously avoid the politics because I am an insurance person by trade purely. But what I will say is, so ASBATE is chartered under ASBA because to build a trust of school districts, you need to be chartered as like a non-government organization, a public entity, if you will. It's part of insurance law. And so we are chartered under ASBA, and that is why membership in ASBA is required to participate in the program. So obviously, I don't want to pontificate on politics. If the Senate bill passed, we would need to determine if the charter rule for membership in ASBA would need to change, and that would take a vote of the ASBATE Board of Trustees member districts, or if that funding happens in some other mechanism that I wouldn't know anything about. But currently the charter says you do have to be a member of ASBA as a district to participate in ASBATE.
Yeah, that's listed as bullet point number 7, the very last item underneath administrative. And that's what caught my attention, that what happens if we enter into this contract and then the Senate bill passes, all of a sudden the districts are going to be jammed up about not having any insurance coverage for their employees. And that's the bottom line here, is having the proper insurance. Would we then have to fall back to a plan B, go back with our hat in our hand to Blue Cross or to somebody else until whatever happens down at the Capitol building gets sorted out? Because that could be a couple of years, knowing our state.
Yes, thank you, Member Brown, for that. And yes, that is a conversation actually that Dr. Monroe and I had today about the membership in ASBATE and being tied to ASBA. What I will say is when legislation is passed, there's usually a period of time that passes before it's actually enacted.
About 120 member districts, yeah.
Member districts, so that would be something that we would go to the board of directors for aspect, and we would regroup and build our own trust. I believe that we would be able to do that with the reserves that we have if this does pass and the SBA is no longer an organization we can contribute to.
Thank you very much.
I have a couple questions. The high deductible plan, the premium that's shown on here, does that include the $240 contribution that the district is making to the HSA?
It does not, and that's really, so that effectively $20 a month difference, that was, I think, that's where the $240 number came out. It's the district's intent, I believe, and I don't want to speak for the district's member Busby, but the district's intent, I think, was for the district's contribution to be equal for those two plans, for the two effectively free plans, and the difference to be contributed to the employee's HSA if they chose the high deductible plan.
Okay, so the premium for that plan is $539, and then on top of that, we're contributing $240?
Per year, yes, so an extra
year.
$20 per month.
Okay, all right. Is there a reinsurer involved with the trust?
Yes, member must be. We do use reinsurance, so we purchase reinsurance through Aetna, is the reinsurer we use today. And obviously that's subject to change yearly, but so is your contract as well.
The comments that Scott was making about that legislation brought up a question. What happens in that 90-day window if you guys aren't able to regroup? Then what happens?
Member Busby, I wouldn't really know honestly how to speculate on that. The insurance contracts as they exist.
Yeah.
The risk apparatus will be there. Whether the charter needs to change.
You would still be set up to administer the claims.
Member Busby, that's exactly correct. I mean, okay. the apparatus of the claim administration, the reinsurance, it's all kind of managed through a separate risk management firm. There is a separate third-party administrator. The apparatus of how this is built won't go away. The charter might need an adjustment.
Okay, that's what I wanted
how I would
to make sure. Okay, all righty, thank you.
Anyone else?
Contract starts on July 1st.
Yes, Member Brown, thank you. Yes.
And
It will start July 1st. That's when the benefits will be in effect.
Well, that gives us a little bit of time, because I would assume that Senate bill will probably be heard sometime, I would hope, before July. They'll usually be done. Legislators usually done by middle summer, so.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good point. So before this actually does go into effect, we would have an opportunity to maybe regroup if necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, anyone else? All right, hearing none, it's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.3, approval of medical benefits for 2022-2023 is presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained. The motion carries. Item 7.3 is approved as presented. Item 7.4, approval of the salary schedules and ranges for the 2022-2023 school year, presented by Ms. Marcy Rodriguez.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher, members of the board. The salary schedules that you are being presented and asked to approve represent an additional 2% on the base of the range for the actual salary that is listed on the classified support staff. Starting pay, we took additional 2% plus 2. A couple
So moved.
Second.
Okay, questions or comments? We've had trouble with numbers of subs anyway, as they have through the state and through the country. Yeah, just having enough subs, otherwise we wouldn't have teachers subbing for other classes. So.
Yes, thank you, President Hatcher. That is true. When we don't have subs to come and cover when an employee is unable to attend work, our other employees have to pick up that additional work, and that's their stuff time. So we want to make sure that we honor the times the teacher needs in their preparation by having enough subs to cover.
Thank you. Comments? None? All right. It's been moved and seconded to approve item 7.4, approval of the salary schedules and ranges for 2022-2023 as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. The motion carries. Item 7.4 is approved as presented. Number 8, future agenda items. There are none. Number 9, upcoming calendar events. Dr. Monroe?
President Hatcher, members of the board, just a few things to bring to your attention. Next week is spring break. As you're aware, our schools will be closed for a very well-needed break for our teachers and staff and for our families. The district office, however, will be open 4 10-hour days from Monday through Thursday. April 2nd is Rock the District. The board is certainly invited. That is going to be a great event at Harold's. April 11th is our next business partners breakfast at the Holland Center in the morning. And then we'll have a spring recess holiday on April the 15th. And one more I'll bring to your attention, I'll probably email you tomorrow about it, is on March 30th. It's a Wednesday, right, Patty? March 30th is our Teacher of the Year dinner. So we're approaching the Teacher of the Year recognition a little different, and so we'll get you that information. I believe it's at 6 p.m. on March the 30th. That'll be 2 weeks from Wednesday, and we'd love to have the board in attendance if your schedule so allows you. But I'll send you some more details in the next day or two.
Okay, thank you. Number 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, the motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.